All right, welcome to Nerds by Screenlight. My name is Aaron.
My name's Vicki.
I'm Phil.
And I'm Zoe.
And today we are going back into the black and white vaults to a movie from 1934.
90 years ago.
Yeah, it's an oldie but a goldie, I guess you could say. But the question for the day is, what is a comedy movie that you actually like?
Romantic comedy.
Romantic comedy that you actually like. So here's my kind of standing on my soapbox. There's not a lot of recent romantic comedies that I like or have any kind of appreciation or respect for. I feel like a lot of them are either gross out, or they're kind of lewd, or they're just like really explicit. Like the humor isn't actually on the romantic part of it. There's a lot. It's all about like, oh, we're gonna look what we can do, and it's like, I don't want to watch this or hear this. Like, no, please, could you do something else? So that's my opening statement. So I go into the classics like When Harry Met Sally, Groundhog Day, Sleepless in Seattle, While You Were Sleeping. That's my romantic comedy. The exception to that rule, though, is any John Cusack, obviously romantic comedy, and he was actually in one with Kate Beckinsale. And that one I appreciate. It's called Serendipity. It's basically all of the romantic comedies just put into one movie.
Oh.
And John Cusack is always a good. He was a solid back in his younger days romantic comedy lead. But yeah, a lot of the recent romantic comedies, they're not funny, or I've watched the trailers and I've been like, what?
That's fair.
There is, interestingly enough, though, Lindsay Lohan is back.
He's back.
She's back in the acting. She's starring in a movie. I think it's called like Leap Year or something, or Leap Promise.
I think I've seen that.
Whatever, Irish Promise. Mm-hmm. And she basically makes a wish at an Irish thing or whatever, and it transports her into her what she wanted, the guy that she wanted to marry, versus in the real world, he was marrying her best friend and all this other stuff. And so it's interesting. It's like it doesn't look great. It looks okay. I don't know. There was like the elements at play were just like, But again, Lindsay Lohan getting back into acting and
It's good.
It's a good redemption story. We'll take what we can get. So that's my the comedies romantic comedies that I like are the classic 90s, You've Got Mail, stuff
That
like
was a
that.
good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one, Joe versus the Volcano, if you've never seen it.
I haven't seen
I haven't seen it either.
Joe versus the Volcano. We might have to do that for next week, because it is just absolutely. It's Tom Hanks, and it's.
You had me at Tom Hanks.
It's fantastic. It's one of my favorite. He basically was going versus a volcano. It's got one of the craziest soundtracks. Anyway, Vicki, romantic comedy that you actually like.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of them. Like the writing's not all that great. Like it's just kind of, it's like cotton candy. It's fluffy, it's sweet, but there's not a lot of substance to them. I have a couple of exceptions to the rule that I just can't help myself, and one of them is Runaway Bride. I have a soft spot in my soul for Runaway Bride. I love her journey. I mean, it's
Richard Gere and Julia Roberts, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
a winning pair.
Yeah.
So I love that one. I love her personal journey of finding out who she is. And there's this running joke where Richard Gere character is like, you don't even know who you are. You don't even know what kind of eggs you like. Because it has changed with each fiance. So I just think it's cute. That director's in a lot of cool movies. Also Hitch.
Hitch, yes.
Oh, I love Hitch.
That's a good one.
My favorite part of Hitch is where he
This
takes
is
her.
where you move.
Yeah, he
That is my favorite too.
Yeah, he takes her to like Ellis Island or something to like find her and it turns out that he was not a good person, and he's just like, oh.
That date goes so bad.
Yeah, it's so wrong.
But it reminds me a little bit of our story, because before we officially started dating, we went on a hiking date, and everything that could have gone wrong on that date did.
Yeah.
It poured down rain. We walked a mile in the rain. We went to the wrong spot. I thought I walked through poison ivy.
Yeah.
We were so tired eating over lunch, we weren't even talking to each other.
You ran through quicksand.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And it still worked out. So
It worked out all right. So yeah, Hitch, I think, is one of those movies that really you try and make that movie today. And a lot of those classic romantic comedies is they're not going to be able to be made today.
Fair.
But yeah, no, I love Hitch because it's Kevin James in it, and it's just an absolute.
Yeah.
when he's dancing, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
Especially when she turns her back and he starts just going full throttle, and I'm like, man, that would win me over.
It's a funny little movie. Phil, what about you? Romantic comedies?
I've mentioned it on the show before, but Just Married is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Right.
Is that
yeah.
Ashton?
It's Brittany
Ashton-
Murphy too.
Yes. Ashton Kutcher and
Yeah.
Brittany Murphy. That movie's hilarious to me. They just get married and go on their honeymoon and start to hate each other. So yeah,
Okay.
but there's one I want to bring up, and Zoe, you can help me remember like if it's considered a comedy or not. But it's got our boy Jim Parsons here, and it was the movie Spoiler Alert that we watched came out.
Oh.
Was that a comedy or no? It was very romantic. I'll say that.
But it's also very sad.
And very sad. But it's got the dude.
Sounds like a great recipe for romantic comedy.
So it's Jim Parsons who plays Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory. And in this movie, he is in a same-sex relationship.
Right.
And doesn't like his partner pass away or something
Yeah, that's
like
why
that?
it's sad.
Yeah, but it's a really good movie.
Okay.
And it's nice seeing him in a different light.
Yeah, where he's not
Yeah.
playing like
A jerk.
Well, just
On
on
the
the spectrum.
on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a jerk. He doesn't mean to, but yeah.
True.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay. Interesting. All right, Zoe.
Oh, well, now I have a couple because you guys like.
Yeah.
My first
Sure.
one is 10 Things I Hate About You. That's
Yes.
my go-to.
It's a classic.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Notebook. I really love The
Oh,
Notebook.
okay.
And I feel like it's kind of coming back because I started seeing like clips on TikTok of people
Yeah.
showing it. And then you made me think of Pretty Women. Or Pretty Woman.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, because Richard Gere and Julie Roberts.
Yes. They're just. So.
And
those
again,
would be
that
my top
director,
three.
he did a lot of, I mean, he did Princess Diaries. He's done a lot of like,
Yeah.
not like somewhat substantive, quirky romantic comedies.
Okay.
I like his stuff.
Well, there you go.
Not Never Been Kissed, though. That's the exception.
That was a little off.
I also want to say as an honorable mention, 50 First Dates.
Yes.
I was going to say
Adam
that, but then I
Sandler
was
and,
like,
and
Barrymore.
Drew Barrymore.
Yeah. I think that so this is a sidebar on Adam Sandler. He's similar, but he's better at it than Will Ferrell is, because early Adam Sandler is great. Middle what was it, Little Nicky, and that was like, okay, Adam Sandler has lost the plot, like he's not so great. Big Daddy, I think, was another one of them where it was just
I actually liked Big Daddy.
I didn't mind it.
It was all of his stuff he did like after 50 First Dates for me. That
Yeah.
was not good.
yeah, and
Except for Uncut Gems, which isn't a comedy, but
Okay.
I've heard that it's like one of his best
then,
movies
right,
ever.
better. Yeah, I think, and then he started really leaning into doing some really great stuff. Like I think he's avoided the Will Ferrell curse, which Will Ferrell, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but you're not doing so well in the comedy world. Like, I don't find you funny anymore.
But Barbie was good. That was a good choice.
Yes.
I think you couldn't have failed with Barbie. I think.
He wasn't over the top in that one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's also like, yeah, know your lane and kind of just find your way through it.
Yeah,
Anyway.
he was also he voice acted in the recent movie Strays, which Aaron, you would probably not like because it is a little raunchy.
Yeah.
But he's not the annoying Will
Okay.
Ferrell.
Okay.
You know how we get like two different Will Ferrells.
yeah,
and this
yeah.
one, he's not annoying.
Okay. Well, there's hope then for his future with me anyway. We'll see. We'll see if it happens. All right. Well, we are going to dig into the black and white movie. It Happened One Night, which reality, spoiler alert, it happens over 4 nights.
Yeah, I'm like, which night?
But it all
what-
started one.
Yeah. It all starts
In
in
what
one
moment?
night. Yeah.
Are we referring to?
Like the bus seat? What?
We'll get to it. It's a classic because we have Clark Gable.
Oh my.
Pre the movie before he was in Gone with the Wind, and then also another classic actress as well in, what is her name?
What's her bucket?
Claudette. Yeah, what's her bucket? That's what I would have said.
The
But
one that my doppelganger.
Claudette Colbert. Colbert. So she's
Colbert, yeah.
Colbert's
Colbert.
better.
There you go. So it's also directed by Frank Capra, produced and directed by Frank Capra, who is of It's a Wonderful Life, like that whole. But and there's a whole history, and Vicki did some of the research on this, and we'll talk about this movie wasn't supposed to be good,
And these actors
Just-
did not want to be in it.
and they were not so
At all.
We'll talk about it here in a second. When we come back, we will spill all the tea, as the kids would say, all the drama and all this and all that stuff. Coming up next here on Nerds by Screenlight. We'll be right back after this.
Get nerdy with me. Talk nerdy to me. Get nerdy with me. All I really need for you to do is just please
I get so.
talk to me. Talk nerdy to me.
All right, welcome back to Nerds by Screenlight. My name is Aaron,
My name's Vicki.
I'm Phil.
And I'm Zoe.
and it happened one night. So here's the thing about this movie you need to realize, and what you have to understand about how in 1934 how the studio systems worked. So in this day and age, an actor or actress isn't stuck with MGM or whoever. Like, we have so many studios, it's bonkers, but they're not stuck. In 1934, the old Hollywood system was you were contracted to work with a studio. So if you were with Warner Brothers, you were with Warner Brothers. You did only Warner Brothers movies. If you were with MGM, you only did. If you were RCA. And Columbia at the time was the dumping ground. It was the punishing ground. So if your actors like acted up or did something foolish, like had an affair, publicly got in trouble, whatever, they were sent to work on Columbia films as punishment. And so both of these actors, actor and actress, both of them were put on the Columbia, were loaned out to Columbia as punishment for real or imagined issues.
I heard a different fact about the actress. I heard that she was given the promise of a doubled salary, and that's why she took the role. What did you hear?
Well, I just know that Clark Gable was assigned because
he'd had an affair.
He got
I can see that one after my research of like his whole death and everything. I
Yeah.
was like, okay.
Clark Gable didn't have he didn't have a perfect life. He was an interesting man. So like in that day and age, you could be loaned out to a studio if the studio paid for you or whatever. But there's also Columbia, which was the dumping ground,
The doghouse.
the doghouse. And so this movie was done in 4 weeks.
Wow.
What?
Yeah, this movie was done in 4 weeks.
Insane to think about.
For real.
So 4 weeks, and it was none of like when both Claudette and Clark Gable, when they came out of this movie, they hated going to work. They hated being on set.
Oh, I bet it was full of crunch too.
She complained the whole time.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, she did. And then when Clark Gable, the last day of shooting, he was like, "Well, let's get this over with." Like that was his attitude. So this movie wasn't intended to be any good.
And the script wasn't, apparently, the rewrites have made it what it is.
Yeah, so
It was not apparently very good. Like, no one wanted this.
Yeah, this was dumped in the back end of Columbia. What's hilarious is it was released and it went gangbusters.
They didn't try to promote it or anything. They're just
Yeah.
like, well,
Yeah, here it is.
Here's
Let's
a
just
movie.
shove it out there, and people went
Watch
to
it,
see
maybe.
and loved it. And this movie won like what was it, 5?
The 5 main Academy Awards. Only 2 other movies have done that: Silence of the Lambs and what was the other one?
I don't know.
Oh, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. That's what it
Oh,
was.
yes.
So
All right.
this movie has that distinction of having been thought of like it's junk. We're just going to release it on a Friday afternoon and it'll be whatever. It is what it is. We had to make it. We're contractually required. We're done. And this movie has become one of the best like comedies, like romantic comedies. And I want to say like there's a lot of elements in this movie where when you watch a romantic comedy of the 90s or the 80s, a lot of those elements are there. But this movie is, it's wild, the things we're going to talk about, because Bugs Bunny is going to enter into the scene here.
Big time.
Yeah, it's going to be hilarious. You're going to get a kick out of this.
Okay.
So there's a lot to come here with this show. So we'll start with where we begin,
Okay.
On a boat.
on a boat. So if you watch, I don't know where did you watch it on Amazon or how did you watch it?
We watched it free,
Free
on
on
YouTube.
YouTube.
Free on YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah,
Ads.
it's free with ads on YouTube.
Okay. Well, we wanted to
I
buy
think
it.
you bought it because it was cheap.
It was
Oh,
like
really?
$4.99 to buy on Amazon.
Okay.
I was like, all right. So movies used to open with an actual like full-on credit sequence,
Yeah.
where it had all like the people introduced and all the stuff, and it showed you the legal thing, whatever. So when you watch a movie from 1934, you're getting a different experience of how they ran the intros. So we open up on our heroine. She is on a boat,
And she is sassy
and she is Sassy Pants McGee.
through the whole movie.
Yeah,
True.
I think she leaned into the feelings of being
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Him as well.
Yeah, I think there was some real life drama. and
Might as well
feelings.
use my pain.
Yes.
It's pretty smart, actually.
Yeah. So it's funny. Like it is seen as one of the greatest films ever made. Think about that for a second. They were dumped in this movie for a 4-week shoot.
And no one wanted to do it, and it was promotion-wise. They didn't even try. And
Well, I'm glad it won all the awards. Because
Yeah.
it
I
am
was
too.
really good.
Yeah. So we start out with Ellie Andrews. Ellen Andrews has eloped with a pilot, the King, as he's known. We don't see him until like
The end.
3/4 of the way through the movie. which I appreciate. His father wants the marriage annulled because that Wesley is
Her
really
father wants the marriage annulled. Isn't it her father or his father? That
no,
wants
her
it annulled?
father,
Her
Alexander
father.
Andrews, wants to have the marriage annulled because what Wesley is really interested in, which is Ellie's money. So we get. I love what this movie does with her. It sets her up to show how sassy pants McGee she is.
You're scared to feed her.
The crew is afraid of her. Every single one of them is terrified. Dad's the only one who's not. He
And
just
she's this little thing.
yeah.
Like really?
Yeah, she is not. She is no shrinking violet. She is on fire, a dragon, if you will. So Dad is like, "Well, we tried. We she didn't want it." She's like, "Okay, well, let me try." So he goes in, and he's like, "I don't want to be here. I don't want you here."
He's like, smell it. Just smell it.
"Yeah, just smell it." She's like, "No, I don't want to smell it." So he
Like
sits,
you would talk to a toddler.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to eat the
Yeah.
broccoli. Just smell it.
yeah, smell the steak, and and then she goes full on, like boosh, and then because I have not seen this movie, right? I was as blind as y'all were. She jumps off the boat.
I called
Opens the window and did it. I'm like, she's not going to do it. She's doing it.
And she swam to Miami.
Like super fast.
They're like getting the boats, and then he's
Got
like,
a personal trainer. She's rich. I don't know.
they're like, she got away, and I'm like, what do you mean she got away?
They're scared to catch her. They don't want to mess with this woman.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
So
she got away.
when she busts out of the stateroom, because they were all listening, the crew just scrambles.
Yeah.
They just run.
They don't want to really catch her.
We don't want this. No, you just gonna kill us. And so she jumps out of the boat, and then they come back and like, we couldn't catch her. And Dad is so mad.
So
He's
mad.
like, wait, catch her, come on. So I think they were probably off the coast of Miami, probably.
Yeah.
They're probably anchored off the coast of Miami. And so then she gets away. And she runs away, and Dad has the Pinkertons, or some kind of detective agency tracing her and tracking her.
Yeah.
And so she knows this. She knows how her dad works. So she gets a lady to buy her ticket for her.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So
'cause
brilliant.
they-
Little old lady
Yeah.
buys her ticket for her.
Yep.
That was so smart.
She gets on the bus, but then we meet our male lead.
Or Peter.
Yeah, Peter.
Peter. Editor fires him on the phone, and his bunch of hangers-on are like, "Yeah, you tell him, man."
And it's like, I don't want to work for you anyway. And they're this is my favorite. They walk with him. Hail the king.
I know.
Which was his nickname in real life.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was. So what I love about that is the movie tries and it gives him the label of king, so it almost fakes us out and thinking, wait, is that the king?
Right.
So you're like, wait a second. But it's also interesting because I think the movie's playing with the fact that he is the rightful king of her
That's right.
heart.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of deal. Okay, go ahead and start talking.
Hello.
Talking.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's just
Good
a
call to check it though.
visual glitch.
Do you want us to give a clap,
Glitchy.
Aaron?
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that again. That's fine. That's
Aw.
all right. On 1, 2, 3. All right. We apologize for the minor hiccup that you may have experienced in going from one thing to the other. We were watching our recording computer, which unfortunately is not in front of me. It will be next week, but there was a visual glitch that was concerning to us, so we had to check it out. But all is well now, and whether or not it comes back to haunt us, we'll see. So we were talking about the king. He was nicknamed the king, and his nickname in real life was the king.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I love about it is that the movie is playing with us a little bit because we're kind of psyched out that this could actually be whatever. So he gets on the bus.
Yeah, this is the best part.
Okay, why?
Because he just starts throwing the newspapers out. He's like, "You're in my seat."
Yeah, he's like, can you move these? And he doesn't move them, so he just throws them out. And then the bus driver comes up and he's like getting onto him, and the whole
yeah?
Yes. Oh.
And
In real life, they were friends.
yeah, so Clark Gable is like, we're not really going to get anywhere. Because
Yeah.
like he's not giving him what he wants.
Right.
He's like, we're not going anywhere. We're not moving any faster. He's like, oh yeah.
It's like, oh, you're right, you got me.
And it finally like says, "Oh yeah," and he finally walks away from him. So then he throws the newspapers
Yeah.
out, and I love it how he's just like, "What are you?"
What are you doing?
So he gets a seat,
Yep.
but then the girl comes aboard, and can't find a seat but next to him, and he doesn't. Does he say he doesn't really?
I think it gets up to he's arguing with the bus driver.
And she like takes.
Oh
his
yeah,
seat.
yeah. He's
No,
arguing-
she just happens to find the open seat.
Yeah.
And he's
and then-
like,
I love the bus driver. He's just like, well, first come, first serve, or
Yep.
whatever. He said with like that little smile of like, sucker.
Yep.
I got you back now.
Yeah.
So yeah, so then he comes back and they have to sit next to each other, and yeah, I did not write any notes. Probably should have, but I'm going to rely on you guys to kind of walk us through some plot because I have my plot notes here on Wikipedia, but it's not extensive as I would like. So they get on the bus, and does she fall asleep on him at this point?
Well, for some reason she moves.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, so she moves. I think she goes to find a better seat.
Well, they have their first stop for dinner.
Oh yeah. So then they stop for dinner.
And he's talking about, hey, someone just stole your bag. And she's like, what?
Oh yeah,
Where'd
the
it go?"
bike stealing. So he watches it happen, and he chases after the dude. Which again, I think it speaks to. So what I love about this movie is he is an absolute jerk sometimes, but the movie makes you kind of think that he's maybe not. Like he's not as black and white. There's more gray to our lead character to him than I think we really want to admit. And what I like about this movie is that it makes him irritating, but it also makes him he's got a heart, and he does care about her and her safety.
I like how witty both of these characters are.
Yeah.
And stubborn.
Yeah.
They're both.
They're
yeah, I
a
called
lot
her,
alike.
They are.
I called it right at the beginning. I'm like, oh, they are both so stubborn. They're perfect for each other.
Yeah.
Or they'll kill each other.
Yeah, either way.
Yeah. And what I like about it is that both of them have agency. This is not a movie where she's the damsel in distress. She's not like needing rescuing. Like she's able to speak up for herself for the most part, and she's not going to let anybody push her around.
Yeah.
But she's on the run from dad, and she's not going back. She refuses to go back to dad. She doesn't want to go back to the arranged marriage and all the other madness that's going to happen with that. So she's on the run, and she stands up for herself.
Which is impressive because we find out later on that she has never been outside on her own before. She's
Yeah,
always had like
just one other time
an
that she
escort
mentioned it.
or something with her, and much less being out with another dude.
Right.
So
Yeah, and this is 1934, so dating like and how males and females interacted it's not like you had to be escorted and whatever. It wasn't that time period, but it was also still like, yeah, it wasn't good for a woman to be kind of hanging out with guys alone.
and
Like,
her daddy's rich.
Like
Yeah.
a Wall Street.
Yeah,
something.
Wall Street mogul.
Yeah. He settles the case at the end for like millions of dollars, and he just throws that money at the guy. It's like $100,000, I'm great. And then we did the research. Obviously, it's like that money, that $100,000 is equal to millions today. And this dude just dropping millions, like Jeff Bezos or whatever, or Elon Musk or whoever you want to put in the place of dad. That's Bill
You and
Gates.
Elon Musk.
I have feelings about X and Twitter that what he's done.
Yes, you do.
I do. I have a lot of feelings. Anyway, but that's neither here nor there.
Basically, she's left with $4 for this entire trip.
Yep, that's all she's got. And so because it was all the money was in her bag that she took with her, and she didn't, wasn't paying attention or whatever. So then he puts her on a budget, and he says, "Well, this is the budget you've got. Like you've only got so much money, whatever." And so they do get dinner. I think. Do they eat dinner?
Well, so the first thing, there's another stop, and they only have 30 minutes for breakfast. And she's like, oh, well, I'll be a couple minutes late. Hold the bus.
Oh
Yeah,
They did not hold the bus.
When that happened, I was like, she thinks this bus is going to wait on her.
Yeah, it did
No.
not wait on her.
But Mr. Peter is there waiting for her.
Yeah. So again, this is the beauty of this movie is that he is kind of that like what you would call him a cad in the older days. You would say, oh, that guy's a cad. But he's also like he cares. But he's also at this point, I think he's figured out who she is. Or is that?
Yeah, in the paper.
Yeah. He knows what's going on. Like he's
And to his credit, he doesn't keep it a secret that he knows.
Yeah. He tells her, I know your secret. I know what's going on.
Here's the deal.
So
front.
He calls her brat all the time.
Yeah.
He becomes her nickname. Hey, Brat.
And he says it in front of him. He's like, hey, Brat. He calls onto the bus. Hey, Brat.
I call Zoe a brat sometimes.
He does. It was almost like our love story, but in the 30s. It was
Yeah.
weird.
It was sweet. I really adored the movie.
Yeah.
As long as there's not like a mogul who's trying to like
I
take
would
you
like
from
some
Phil.
background, maybe not at this moment.
Like a
but-
helicopter
I'm probably
ride.
just as stubborn as her.
Okay.
So,
Okay, that's fair.
I'm going to be honest.
Only
Okay.
child syndrome.
Yes. Whereas he has 2 siblings, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's amusing for a slight rabbit trail. It's funny because Zoe's a counselor with a master's degree in counseling. And so that makes probably relationships even more exciting because you're able to figure, like, yourself, and then you're like, oh, no.
No, it's the worst.
You're like, everything that I like, you're self-diagnosing, and you're going, Oh, that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
Dang it!
Why?
Why did I choose this career? Stupid Chainsaw Massacre movie.
I know. Jeez.
Set me on the path to whatever this is. So he calls her brat, and so at this point they've got the whole day, and
Until 8 when the bus is back.
until 8 o'clock when
they
the
gotta
bus
wait.
comes back. So do they split up at this point?
Now this is where I don't remember
I can't remember either.
what they do at that time, or if they just kind of clip to the night.
I think they do.
I think they clipped to the night.
Yeah, so he got to ask her like, well, what did you do all day? Because it was raining.
Right.
So she ends up, I just walked in and out of doorways, standing out of
avoiding the rain.
avoiding the rain. And so they get on the bus.
He gives her a
and-
towel to dry off a little bit.
Yeah.
But she doesn't want to sit by him. And, I kind of can't blame her because
And
he's
then
being really...
jerk.
Yeah, didn't it, like
Wait
really.
till we tell you a fact about this jerk.
Oh,
but
no.
We'll get to him.
Okay, so she sits next to just another guy, and he sits across the aisle, so he's like right next to her, sort of on the other side.
And he's literally like leaning
Yeah,
back.
and he just kind of sits back, puts his feet up, and he's just kind of hanging out.
So I told Aaron this. I've alluded to the fact that, like, before Aaron, creepy guy magnet, they were all like this.
Yes.
They were all like this, and they just can't catch a hint, won't leave you alone. And I was just like, oh my gosh,
Go away.
PTSD.
Yeah, so he's like, oh, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Hey, how you? He's just total like car salesman, like greasy, like, hey, baby, how you doing?
I could have a good time with you.
Yeah, what about it? And
Fun is my middle name or something.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And it's just, and so then finally our hero pulls one and steps in and says, "Do you want to talk that way to my wife?"
I'm like, yes.
And I was like,
I
"Oh
sure
no,
do."
here we go. The lies begin." So yeah, he sits down and she says something nice, and he's like, "Whatever." Like he immediately just shuts
Like,
her
oh,
down.
Sorry.
Yeah, and he
Yeah,
didn't know that
she
was your
thanked
wife.
him.
yeah, yeah. I think he just said, "Well, I'm protecting my investment or something."
Yeah.
and like that. And so I think she even tries. Like, there's some couple times where she tries to do things, and he's like, "No, you're not doing it."
She tried to buy chocolate.
Yeah, that whole thing.
Oh, I got upset about that at first. I'm like, what? Why? Who are you? And then you were talking to me. It's like, she doesn't really have money. I'm
Yeah,
like,
she doesn't have any
I
money.
guess
Yeah,
that's true.
he's
She's
like,
got to
you're
eat.
blowing through your money,
Well,
man.
the other thing I think he's trying to do is he's trying to keep her from engaging with people so they don't recognize her.
Oh, that's
Because
a
if
good point.
they, like, as we find out later in the movie, people are reading newspapers and they see her picture, and that gives her away to our jerk, which then leads to one of the greatest and
Yes.
most terrifying segments of this movie.
Yeah, because their dad put a reward out.
Yeah.
Like a $10,000.
$10,000 reward, and that's big money at that time. It's probably that reward is probably upwards of more than 100,000.
Yeah,
and
at
when
least.
you
Ton of money.
adjust for the time. So yeah, so she sits by him, and then at this point, are they? When do they end up in like the rain, and they end up like the truck crashes at this point?
The
No,
bridge
that's
washed
later.
down.
Okay, so they end up. Oh yeah, the rain washes the bridge out,
So they have to
stop for the night.
I love this.
Yeah. So a little bit of background. This actress confused everyone on the set because she refused to undress in any way in front of the camera, despite the fact that she had done that in a previous role.
Good for her.
I agree, but this is where a joke got into the film about like the blanket over, the wall of Jericho.
Walls of Jericho.
Yeah, so it
started
I
with
think if
that.
I read that, it's like that was their solution, so that she could still like do what needed to be done in the film, but it was more undercover and more like alluded to because you don't see her, you see the clothes pop over the walls of Jericho, and
Can you please remove your garments from the wall of Jericho? Sorry.
Yeah.
But I like how he kind of plays with her though, because he starts taking his clothes off.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
because he's like, hey, like we
I know.
gotta-
I was like, "Whoa, this is saying it like."
How long are you going to stand there, little lady?
Well, what's interesting, so there's some apocryphal kind of in the notes of the movie that he didn't wear an undershirt. And normally guys wore an undershirt under their button shirt, but for whatever reason, because he couldn't get it off. Right, he couldn't take it off.
said, "Forget it."
And so basically, he didn't have an undershirt for the scene because it was easier just to do the button shirt because he couldn't get the.
Well, he's built different. Okay.
Yeah, he's a bit of a bigger, more muscular
Like, yeah.
individual. So they cut. There's apocryphal kind of concern. No, there's no real facts on this, but there is apocryphal statements that after this movie, they stopped wearing and purchasing white shirts to wear under their button-up shirts.
This movie was very influential in other ways.
There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, and they don't know, they can't say for certain because obviously in 1934 we can't dig into those records because they weren't computerized. But yeah, there was like some suggestion that because of this movie, guys were started not wearing whatever.
You want to be like Clark Gable, I guess.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
And Clark Gable was the business. He was the image of the ultimate man.
Oh, he's beautiful.
Yeah, he had a certain kind of, I don't know what you call it, but
Charisma, charm.
he had
Riz.
he had the Riz. That's what kids call charisma these days. In case you didn't know, they call it the Riz.
I mean, I've heard of Riz.
You've got Riz. I'm like, oh, whatever.
We had teenagers. I know about Riz.
Yeah, the putting on the Riz. Anyway, so the walls of Jericho are up, and then
I just love that name.
I know, it's the best.
so then that morning, so this is at the hotel. So this is at the car park, not the car park. This is at a place where they stop off, and he gets them a room or whatever. And then in the morning, she wakes up.
He made her breakfast.
He made her breakfast, which is
Got her a toothbrush.
one egg and one donut,
And one black coffee.
one black coffee.
You're not dunking it right.
Yeah.
Why do you dunk like that?
yeah. And I like this moment because it gives us because that is not, I don't know if that's something that people do in this day and age, like dunking your donuts in coffee.
Oh, I do.
Okay.
The closest
Do it
I've
in
heard
milk.
is the Tim Tam Slam.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I've never dunked a donut in a coffee. It's not my jam. I'm going to start trying it out because I was like, oh, that's new. So that whole scene is hilarious because he's like, you're not dunking it right. You got to just doop it, and you're soaking it. It's going to get too soggy.
He has a point, though.
I mean, that works with Oreos. That's
Yes.
legit.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful.
Well, what's funny is she dunks it and then she starts tearing her donut apart. She just doesn't even care.
Yeah.
She's like, whatever. You tell me what to do. I'm going to do the opposite. And then she has to go shower.
I love this scene. It shows her entitlement so
yes,
hard.
it does. It definitely gets put in her place.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this is that they went with a crane camera
Okay.
for a lot of this. So a lot of movies in this day and age, they just had cameras that were stationary and they would rotate them or whatever. But what Frank Capra for this movie did, he put it on a crane. So when she's walking to the showers and we pass all those people, that film is on a moving crane
Oh, cool.
way. So that's why, and you see it also in It's a Wonderful Life because you track George Bailey as he's running through, hello, savings and loan, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what I love about this is that it's absolutely a picture of Americana. You see everyone who is just everyday folks, and it's all. And Capra had a vision of how he wanted to portray it, and I'm sure that's what the point was. He was showing us, look, she doesn't even look at any of these people. She just walks right through it, and they just kind of
Right
look
to the
at
front,
her.
opens the shower. Like, wouldn't it be available to me?
Yeah, she's like, oh, this is shower. She walks in and
Yeah, I'm like, why do you think all those people were standing out there for? Like,
Within their towels.
yeah.
So she's still working through her entitlement
And I
age.
think even if you were really, there was part of me that was like, well, maybe she's really naive, but but just opening the curtain, not even listening for water. That was the part to me that was like,
Yeah,
What?
it was a little bit. Yeah, so then she gets in the back of the line and
oh, they laugh at her,
Yeah.
scorn her.
yeah,
Stick their
does.
tongue out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that happens too.
Then she does it right back to her. I'm like, oh, you are a child,
Yeah.
child. So then she gets back to the hotel and
I
she's
made
all,
friends with all the women.
yeah, we have friends. She's showered.
Liar.
Yeah, and that's
Save
when
face,
and this
okay.
is when the detectives show up, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
this is
hilarious.
amazing.
So this is one of my. I love this scene because both of these, neither of them want her to be discovered, right?
Right.
Neither, like for her, for reasons she knows that she'll be pulled and kicking and screaming out of there, and she'll have to go back. And him because he's protecting the fact that he's going to get a story out of this in the end that will be an exclusive story, and he needs that. He
Yes.
needs that story to get back in the good graces of his editor or some editor that he goes to. And just also, if you're wondering, you're like, well, why couldn't you just go to another paper? In 1930s, newspapers were a lot more controlled. And only certain publishers. We talk about. Have you ever heard of the Hearst family? The Hearst family owned a ridiculous amount of newspapers back in that day, in that time.
That's terrifying.
And they had control of those newspapers, so you couldn't work for a Hearst newspaper if you got fired from. So there are only like one or two magnets.
Okay.
You see it in Newsies. If you've ever watched Newsies, there's a publisher who is the big bad cigar chomping bad guy, and they're trying to break him by doing their strike. And in the end, they do. But he's, that was the idea that they were monopolies on newspapers, and they could control the money that got paid. They could control the news in a lot of ways. So that's why, if you are wondering, well, why didn't you just go work somewhere else? Because there was only a couple of newspapers in town that you could work for, and most of them were probably owned by the same company and by the same guy. You couldn't skip across town to get another job at being a journalist. So the detectives show up.
I think this is where they fall in love, to be honest, because they just do it
They
so
work
well.
so well together.
So
Like
so
maybe we could make this work.
he looks out and he says, "Okay, mess up your hair, just go with it. Here we go." And he just goes into such a like fugue-like state of like, you and it is
Stop bawling.
yes, stop bawling.
They're just a happily married couple. Like, this is happy.
And I love
So many questions.
the caretaker of the hotel or wherever
Yeah.
they're at. And he's like, he turns to the detectives and he's like, "You see what you've done?
Look what you did.
Stop bothering my tenants."
So they go through the whole thing, and then I think you're right. They do start their sparks fly.
Yes,
and
that was like epic.
They were the meet cute has happened, and it's fully inflamed.
Because they come back and she instantly starts.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they don't come back. It's just someone telling them that the
Bus is here,
bus
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And so she throws herself back.
But they think it's the same thing. So immediately like, I told you not to. Ah! The bus is here. Oh, okay.
well, he's smiling, like he's almost like he's in on the joke somehow. Don't know if that was
Oh,
intentional.
no.
That may have been. I think it was probably he probably was just laughing because it was amusing. Well, who knows? Who knows what was really going on there? So they get we haven't even packed it. They get all packed up and they get back on the bus and we're back off and running.
On the road again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait.
And so I think they sit together again or no?
No, she old man falls asleep on her,
Yeah. So he sits somewhere
like
else and they don't-
snoring in her face.
Yeah, and she just because maybe she doesn't want to sit with him, or he has. I don't know what he does.
See, I thought that was earlier.
That was earlier.
Okay, never mind.
I'm not sure about this bus scene. I don't remember.
I feel like they're together, but this is when the singing happens.
Oh yeah.
Oh, so
yeah.
is this where they were hitchhiking?
No, this is before.
Not yet.
So
Okay.
this is on the bus where everyone starts to sing that song.
Oh, with the
yeah,
That
yeah.
was so cool. Like,
And
why
what-
can't that happen today?
And this is where
I'd
we
be here for that.
the dude like recognizes who she
Yeah.
is.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Now I know where we're going. I'm with you. So yeah, they're singing,
Shapley
and it's
figures it out.
and it's an old song, and it's a classic song, and he's like, and every like a couple of them sing through their version or the next version of the song or the next line or the next chorus or whatever, and everyone on the bus is just having a good old time, and then Shapley, he opens and he looks over there and he goes,
It was like $10,000 reward.
yep. So the driver, of course, is singing along and drives them into the mud.
wonderful.
You had
Good
one job.
Yeah.
Just one.
Yeah. Not a great way. So then he gets off the bus and he's looking around, and then Shapley says, "Hey, I want to talk to you. I think I know who this is." And he's like, "Well, come with me. Let's go talk where nobody can see us." And at that point I said, "He's going to kill him." he's going
See, I didn't think so. I'm like,
gonna
it's not
die.
that kind of movie.
we picked up a
But-
murdering movie.
He just fake threatens him.
And
Yeah,
just
I
really
love how he
well.
does it too.
Well, and so this is the thing about this movie is with the capable actors and actresses that you have, they can act their way out of a paper bag. And
gosh,
you're
this
talking
guy.
about one of the best actors of Hollywood at this time.
Oh, I was so
Clark
impressed.
Gable he could have probably have played a mobster in a movie if he hadn't already. But he's just like, oh, the boss, we got a deal. We're gonna squeeze him for $1 million.
I mean, he could turn it on a dime and go
Yeah.
from charming to
Stare.
scary.
Yeah, I was just like, that's why I was like, he's gonna kill him. He's gonna throw him
I
in
have a
the
terrible
mud.
confession for the internet.
Yeah.
Up until maybe last night we watched this movie, I have not been. Clark Gable to me has been, well, here's why. My parents loved him and Gone with the Wind to the point where they named our dog after. We had a dog named Rhett Butler.
Oh my god.
Yes,
Wow.
I told you
Dang.
this.
Yes, you did. I just had forgotten it. I think because I was just.
And as an adult, I'm like, I can't believe they did this. And I watched the movie and I'm like, this guy?
yeah, that's the one. You
Our
chose?
dog. So my whole life, it's been like, and in this movie, I'm like, oh, he is a really good actor.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's capable.
So I've sort of changed my mind a little bit. I'm still like, we should have named the dog after.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah. So he
no, they
full
call
on
him-
threatens the dude and says like, you need to, I'll find you if you tell anybody, and I'm just like, oh my god, we're like, and so then Shapley takes off running.
He's like, oh, I'm sorry, I won't tell anybody. I won't. But the
And then he falls, and I swear that they didn't fall on purpose. Like that was an accident.
it was an
I bet.
accident.
More than likely, who knows?
I mean, it was just too good.
Yeah.
I just love how he's like, "Am I going to turn around? You're going to shoot me in the back?" And he's like, "I might." But
get
it's
outta here.
It's not a gun. You can tell he's like going like this.
Yeah, he just got
Yeah,
his hand in
but
his
how he
pocket.
could play it so well.
Shapley is just he just runs.
Bye.
So
then-
fact one about Shapley, his
Yeah.
character, part one of inspiration for Bugs Bunny.
That is, what?
It gets better.
It
gets a
does.
lot better.
To say it's part one. There's more to come.
So he goes back to, he calls Brad off the bus. What I like about it is he does tell her everything he did. She's like, that was really mean of you to do that to Shapley. And he's like, he said, as soon as he
Don't
stopped
feel
running.
bad for Shapley. He's got a wife and kids.
Yeah, he's got a wife and kids. He's like, I got a wife and kid. I got 2 babies at home. Like,
What have you been doing?
Yeah.
Sleazeball.
For
Yeah.
real.
So she's like, he'll eventually wise up and turn on us. So as far as he can get from us, the better. And so at this point, he
This is funny.
he carries her across the water, and there's a whole debate
But whether it's a piggyback ride.
Piggyback.
And it's not piggyback.
No.
At
that's
all.
fireman carry.
Yes, it is.
His fire carrying her across.
And he's
the
just
water.
arguing, yes, it is. It's just like, no, I've done this my whole... Or,
Yeah, my daddy, he was the best. I was like, your father was a mean individual. If this is what he called piggyback, that is not how piggybacking works.
He's like, I don't know any rich people that do piggybacks.
yeah, he has to get in a little bit of a barb on her.
And I expected that water to be a lot deeper.
yeah.
Me too.
I was like...
Pulling up his pants all
I
the
know,
way.
and I was like, what is that like? It's not even to your knees. Let her walk through it. Come on.
Yeah, it's amusing because I was thinking that they were going to fall in the water and there's going to be that's going to be a whole
great.
disaster thing.
Save me.
Right, yeah, but no, they don't. He gets her across the water, and at this point, do they end up? Is this where they end up at the barn?
And the
He
sleeping
gets
in
all
the
the
hay.
hay.
Yeah, all the hay.
Which was kind of
My
ingenious, I
clothes are
thought.
gonna get wrinkly.
I was like, I'd be more concerned about mice personally.
yeah. So there's a whole debate, and this is where she kind of really starts to fall in love with him a little bit more.
And he does too.
Yeah,
There's a moment where
yeah. He does. He almost kisses her.
He
doesn't
yeah, it
does.
gets really close.
It's close to
She
kiss.
was gonna let it happen
Yeah,
too. You
there
can
was-
see in those eyes.
Yeah,
It was like,
there was
you're
yeah,
married.
Yeah. So they don't, and I think he gets mad, and then he just and goes back into his
Well, she's been talking about being hungry.
yeah.
Like a
So
lot.
then he goes and finds carrots.
Incessantly.
Yeah.
He goes and finds
Hungry,
carrots,
I'm hungry.
and then he goes off, and she panics, like genuinely panics.
Like,
Oh,
so
then
she's
yeah.
like talking to herself, and she's like, "I don't need this man." Blah blah blah. And then she realizes that he's gone, and she starts screaming for him.
It's like a child.
Yes.
Well, I think so. This is what this movie does really well: is it gives her that strength. She does have agency, but it's also you have to like the layers of this is really fun. Well, fun in a way, I guess, evaluating it, but not fun for the character to go through. But so she's a rich girl, right? So she's never had to want for anything. She's always had someone around her, and she talks about it, like we talked about earlier. She's always had a bodyguard with her, and when she tried to escape, she ran into another bodyguard. Like she's never truly been alone.
Yeah.
And so for the first time, as he's going off to search for something, she is alone. And that's in this movie, it's one of the very few times where she is absolutely alone. There's no one else around, and she panics. She flips out and goes, Peter, Peter, Peter. And he's like, I'm here. Like, what's going on? And then they get another little, and then they both sleep on opposite sides of the
I'm not hungry anymore. The fear took it out of me.
because he offers
A child.
offers her the carrots, and that's I think where they kind of come together, and then they. So yeah, and they wake up in the morning. And where do they go?
They're hitchhiking, which is hilarious.
Yeah. Okay. So the hitchhiking scene is.
And he's eating his carrot,
Phil-
talking really fast. It's part 2 of the inspiration for Bugs Bunny.
Well, now I can see.
It actually was the creators of Bugs Bunny pointed to this movie and said that's the inspiration for Bugs Bunny's chomping on the carrots.
Oh my God, that's perfect.
And Shapley's character is another thing that we'll
it's
get
a
to.
direct connection, like absolutely.
Yep.
That wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for this movie. We wouldn't have Bugs Bunny
Wow.
and his carrot eating. Phil, you were shaking your head earlier about the hitchhiking scene.
Yeah, it's not the hitchhiking scene really. That it's the one when they get picked up.
Oh, okay.
The hitchhiking scene's hilarious. He's like showing her all the different,
different ways.
Here's all the different ways. Watch the masterwork and nothing
and they
works.
all fail. She's like, "Well, let me know when you get to number 100." And so he goes out there. He does it like 15 cars drive
just
past.
and rapid fire.
Yeah,
He's just moving that thumb like
Everywhere.
all over the place.
yeah. She's
Nothing.
like, "Let me try." So she goes out there and just flashes a little leg and stop immediately. And then this is the part where this dude annoyed the crap out of me.
Well, before
Yeah.
you say that, so interesting story. Our leading actress initially didn't want to flash her leg. which follows with her not wanting to appear indecent, quote unquote, for the 1934.
I mean, it is the 30s, yeah.
Right.
But so they had a stunt double put her leg out there.
No way.
And she flipped. She said, "That's not my leg. I'll do it." Because she saw the film. She like watched the dailies or whatever. She's like, "That's not my leg." So she went ahead and did it.
Oh my god.
So it's like there's
A
lot-
child.
yeah, like there's just that drama of like nobody liked this nobody liked being on this production. Everyone hated it. Everyone was miserable, and so she was just like, "Meh, meh, meh, meh." So it's just a lot of just drama.
Frankie.
For her.
Well, it helped for
I
the
feel
movie.
bad for the
dude.
director.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. So she flashes. So then the guy that we get with, he's singing.
Oh,
yeah, and
a
he's
lot.
Stop.
yeah, I agree, Phil. He was annoying as all heck. I was just like, get him off.
At first, I'm like,
the
oh, he's
screen.
got a good voice. And I'm like, no.
No, he does not.
Stop singing. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. So he drives them to a gas station.
Yeah.
And
You
he's
want
like,
some food? And she's like, yes, please.
and he says,
I
no.
will get you food.
Well, I think our guy, he's kind of suspicious of this dude. He's not full on suspicious, but he's like, no, come with me. Like, I got to keep, partially also because he probably is thinking this guy's going to take her in there and call her dad
Right.
and sell her out. I'm going to lose my story. And so he does apologize to her when they're sitting down.
Yeah.
And then the guy comes out, looks, and jumps in the car and takes off. And
with their luggage.
with their luggage. And so our guy runs after him, and she's like, "Come back, Peter, what are you doing?" And he doesn't.
no.
And then he eventually comes back with the car.
And no guy. Did he
And
tie him
he's-
to a tree or something?
And
Yeah.
he's got an injury. So there was a fight that we didn't get the opportunity to see.
Too bad.
I know. That would have been wonderful.
Would have been amazing. I'm sure they could have made the comedy. But then he says, "Yeah, no, he was a guy he's a thief. Like he does this to people." And it was a theme in those days, I guess, in the 30s, where
It's the Great Depression.
people would
you know?
pick up people would pick up hitchhikers and then rob them and then leave them on the side of the road. and
Isn't
take
that
their stuff.
interesting? Because
They're
these days I feel like we fear the opposite.
Yeah.
Picking up a hitchhiker and something happening to us.
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah, because they're hitchhiking. Obviously, they don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Or like, why would you rob someone hitchhiking? I don't know.
I think, well, you got to think about it for in 1930s, probably a different culture around hitchhiking.
Yeah.
Is it probably was more, I would say maybe more permissed, perhaps. I don't, again, no definite research on that, but it's definitely different than it is now, where
Yeah.
generally people don't pick up hitchhikers because
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Sorry.
there's a weird exception, like with hikers, like people who hike the Appalachian Trail. Hitchhiking is apparently a big part of the experience. You're gonna have to hitchhike at some point. And there's always the challenge of, will they pick me up? And sometimes people in the area realize, okay, I see a pack, and they're probably hiking the AT.
Yeah.
I've seen too many horror movies.
So
I wouldn't do it.
So the book, are you still reading it or have you finished it?
I'm still reading it.
So there's a book by Bill Bryson called Into the Woods. And
I think I've read the part you're going to talk about. We'll see.
well, it's an absolute Bill Bryson is fantastic on his own. Like anything he's written, he writes about the journey of hiking the Appalachian Trail, and it is a fever dream at times of just absolute hilarity and absolute like horror and everything. Like it's everything. It's a fantastic book. If you haven't read it, if you're listening, you should check it out. Into
Even
the
if
Woods.
you're not into hiking, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting study of humanity and what happens to us when we're out on our own. Yeah. And because the Appalachian Trail you're in the middle of nowhere. You don't got no cell signals.
For a long time.
You're hiking it. So
I have been in the Appalachian Mountains with
Yep.
my family when I was younger, in a '65 Mustang where the headlights went out in pitch black darkness.
oh,
Yeah. Those woods are thick.
And on those roads, some of them were just 1-lane roads.
Yep.
Oh,
They're
geez.
winding.
That was terrifying. I think my memory blocked out how we made it out of that situation. 'cause
Jeez.
I used to live in
It was scary.
North Georgia, but those woods get dark.
Yeah, well, in the Appalachia area is definitely its own beast when it comes to that kind of stuff. Okay, so he gets the car back. So they drive.
What story were we going to tell about the hitchhiking in the book?
I didn't have a story. Really
oh,
to
okay.
tell.
Anyway, go ahead.
So
Sure.
they end up at the car park. Is this where do they go from here?
Hold on.
So they're driving, and he needs to get gas.
Yes, they need
So-
to get gas.
And I think
this-
she needs to take like some things out of pockets. They're going to
Yeah.
sell her. Or
So he
something.
sells off a lot of his clothes.
And then I think they get a hotel for the night.
And is
Yeah.
this where they at the hotel where
And
they,
they're 3 hours away from New York.
Yeah. So they we're actually heading towards the end of the movie. Hilariously
Yeah.
enough. So they kind of swindle the guy, and they say, "Oh, we'll be here for a week," and he's like, "Oh, that's a good payday," and like, "Oh, we'll pay you tomorrow."
And his
whenever."
wife or his mom or whatever is like, why do you always let these people take advantage of you?
Yeah. So
She's
then
on 'em.
they park, and so they're a little fighty at this
Well,
point.
because he's like, dude, we're only 3 hours away. Like, why don't you want to go?
Okay, so this is the point where she's fallen in love with him now, and she's
Gonna tell him.
She's gonna tell him. Well, no, because
And I think he has too, but he doesn't want to admit
so
it.
So she's okay. Here's the thing we're missing. So King and the dad make up, and dad says, "Okay, I'll give up. I'll give in. You can take her. I won't fight." And so he sends out all these articles to the world to say he'll come back home, come back home. She sees that and knows that her dad just sold her out or something's up. And so now she doesn't want to go to New York because she knows what's coming and she realizes the guy she's got is the one she wants.
Yeah.
And so
I don't think she ever really wanted this guy anyway. She was just about rebelling against her
no,
dad.
I
That's
think,
what I think.
I think so. Here's part of I think what happens with King is that it was an opportunity to be her own person, and we talk a lot about agency with women in literature and movies. I'm gonna go way back 400 years ago, Romeo and Juliet. So we did it for a little while as a study in one of my classes at the high school, but we talk a lot about Juliet's agency. And Juliet's agency is robbed of her for the most of the movie. Her dad takes control of her destiny. You're going to marry Paris. That's going to happen. Yeah. And so Juliet's like agency, similar to our character in this movie, her agency is not her own. Her dad won't let her go out. Her dad won't let her marry. Her dad won't let her do anything. And so she finally says, enough is enough. I'm out. And same thing with Juliet. Like she's like, I'm going to get married to Romeo no matter what you do. And if that means that, I have to run or I have to escape or whatever I got to do.
Fake my own death.
I'm going to do it. Like, I'm going to do it. And it's going to happen. And so both of these characters, which is an interesting thing to be comparing Romeo and Juliet to It Happened One Night.
I think it's a good comparison, actually.
I can see it.
'cause both, there's almost like there aren't two families.
Like a rich celebrity and a journalist. They're not exactly friends usually.
Right. Well, and it's interesting. We'll talk about Dad here in a second because Dad does some really interesting flip-flopping.
I'm rooting for dad at the end. I'm like,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
So it's interesting that we talk a lot about agency. And so she has a lot of agency in this movie, and she's given it because she takes it. She's not going to let somebody else tell her what to do. But what's also interesting, this movie doesn't go full liberation thing.
Right.
It still couches in the fact that she does want somebody.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, again, 1930s, you couldn't stretch it too far. But I think even like in the concept of a romantic comedy, it's like, yeah, you should find someone to spend time with. You should find someone to have that relationship with. That's a value that you should embrace. I think that's what this movie says. So anyway, Juliet and our heroine have definite dynamics, which is something I didn't think about until tonight. So there we go. I've got something else to go on.
Boom.
So she reads the papers and suddenly just doesn't want to go to New York. And he's going, what's going on
We're
here?
like almost there.
We're just like, we can get there. She's like, well, I wouldn't want to get there at like 4 a.m. in the morning.
No one's gonna be
No
awake."
one's going to be awake. And I'm just like, lady, if you
Okay.
knocked on your dad's house at 4 a.m. in the morning, he's definitely going to wake up and come check on you and say, welcome you home. So she makes a lot of excuses. And so he puts up the walls of Jericho. And she...
Let's read this, a blanket, everyone.
She basically asked him, like, do you believe in love and what does that look like for you, basically?
Yeah.
And he goes on this whole story about that.
Do we believe, like, because what does he say? He says, like...
Something about like looking up at the star, like a simple life of like looking up at
Yeah.
the stars and like just having the person you love next
Yeah.
to you.
And have them like, I kind of read it as like someone to basically do adventure with, not someone who's
Yeah.
going to sit on the sidelines, but who's going to be a part of it with me.
Yeah. And what's interesting is she is now, without question, fully in love with this man because the life he's talking about is the life she wants. She wants that simple little life. She doesn't need all the, and she's come to realize that. Again, character in a movie, to have a character arc go full tilt from start, like that's brilliant to have her as she changes. But we ain't done yet because, oh my goodness. So she cries.
She basically throws herself at him.
Yeah.
She's like, please love me. Like,
I don't want anyone else.
I don't want anyone else.
I want to do all those things you talked about.
I want you. And he says, go back behind the walls. Like,
Yeah.
sends her
Go back to your bed.
Go back to your bed. And he thinks about it for a little bit. And he realizes, wait, no, I shouldn't have. We should be. So he says, hey, you awake? And
Like,
she's,
did you really mean that stuff that you said?
yeah, and she's conked out. And
She
it's-
sobbed herself to sleep.
yeah, she cried herself to sleep. He doesn't wake her up.
No.
Which is the big plot hole that this movie
Yeah.
makes us believe in. And in a way, you understand his desperation because he's fighting two pieces. He's fighting, I want to get the story, and I want the girl. And he's a journalist, and he's going to choose his journalism first, which is his big mistake, which is the part of the story where you just kind of go, man, if you'd only... But I think if people are criticizing the movie, they're like, well, he should have just woken her up. Yeah, but if your life has been built around the idea of being a journalist, an award-winning journalist, and you write the story, you got to get the story, and you've told yourself this whole trip, I'm going to get this story.
And you've been fired. So
And you've been
probably
fired.
your way back in.
You need a job. Money's not going to just grow on trees today. And so he gets in the car, sneaks out, and drives away. Goes to New York, goes into the office and like says, "Hey," and writes the story, and then goes to the back of the office and says, "I have a story for $1,000. She fell in love with me." And his editor, she walks in, she's like, "He's gonna shoot you."
Yeah.
I like her though.
He's just like, I'm doing it anyway. So he gets in and he convinces the editor of it, and the editor's like, it takes a bit though.
The
He's
editor
not fully,
thinks he's drunk too.
yeah,
He's
you're like, "You're drunk. Like this, you need to go home." And he's like, "No, here's what's happening. Here's what's going on. I left her. I got to get back to her. I need $1,000. I think $1,000 is for the trip. Like he's gonna get the tickets and they're gonna
Well,
go.
he's like, I can't go back to this woman I love penniless.
Yeah, I need something to give to her," which is interesting because she's obviously rich as all get out and could just
Yeah.
call Daddy and he'd give her the money if she really asked. And so he turns it in and he takes off.
Yeah.
And then they cut to her.
Yep. No. So the owner and the wife.
This
she
lady
said-
needs to just mind her business. Okay.
She's like, he took off with the car. He's gone. We need you. I told you this is a bad idea. We do.
Yeah.
So then they knock on the door. She kind of wakes up, and then they come in, and they're, "Oh, he's gone. He took the car too." And then they say, "Oh, who's that?" And she's like, "Where? Like, he's gone, man. He took the car and he took off." And so she then immediately thinks he's left to sell me out, or he's left me, and because her last memory is of him telling her, "Go to bed, cry it out, and get over yourself." That's the last she's known. And so when she sees him gone, she's like, "Well, I have nowhere else to go." And they throw her out basically.
And they tell her the sheriff is like right up the way.
Yeah, go to the sheriff's office. So she does, and she calls home and tells Dad, "This is where I'm at. I'm ready to come home. I read the papers. Let's do this." And so a police escort races down the road.
While he's singing the stupid song again.
No.
And so he's driving, he's getting there. He eventually has to sell more of his
Smitten.
stuff to get the gas, sells his hat of all things,
Yeah.
and continues on. And then, so the police get to her. They pick her up. She's miserable, of course. She's not really happy about it. They pick her up, then they drive her back, and he gets stuck at the train. And here
Move that thing.
Yeah,
Like,
move that
what do you-
thing.
What do you expect him to do?
And on the other side,
is the police
And at
escort.
and at the same time, he's waving at everybody on the train.
Yeah.
He's all giddy and
Yeah.
they're all waving back. Hey!
So the train comes by, the things come up, and he's looking at the police course, and they drive by, and she sees her with King and Dad. And that's when he's just like, oh.
And doesn't his the tire goes flat or
Yep,
something?
the tire flat.
Well, he chases him for a
Yeah,
little bit, and then he
chases him
stops.
down.
Pulls a Yui, the conductor, whatever, holding the truck is just like, what?
What are you doing, man? So he can't keep up because the car is not made to catch up with the police cars. So he gives up, the tire flattens, and that's the end. That's from now for a little bit, that's all we see of him. So then we come back to her and Dad, and he's asking, so he's like, "Welcome back, here's King, whatever." And there's an interesting thing. So she asks him, I think point blank, have you heard from him? And he's like, so she says his name, and he goes, "Oh." She's like, "What do you know?" She knows her dad really well enough
Yeah.
to go, "What is the story here?" And he's like, nothing. And she's like, "What is that?" Pulls it out of his suit jacket, and it says, "I'd like to speak to you about your financial situation involving your daughter." She's like, "So he just was in it for the reward?" Because again, all she knows is that he took off on her, left her to be kicked out of the hotel and sent to the sheriff's office to get help. And so she's just like, "No, he did one of the reward, blah, 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 blah."
Yeah.
Temper tantrum.
Well, so I laughed about this, that the waiter or the housekeeper brings her a bunch of glasses, and I'm guessing it's champagne because she downs 3 of them in
This is
succession.
what I needed, thank you.
And I'm just like, oh my goodness, he's driven her to drink in 1934. What? So she starts and then I think she does.
The king is here
The
now.
king is here now.
Yeah.
So he shows up, and she's like, "Oh, la la."
We're gonna have a merry-go-round
Yeah.
kind of relationship.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah, it's
Well, did she have the conversation with her dad about him yet?
not.
that's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah, we're in that area. So she's alluded to him, and he's curious because he's like, "Okay, who is this guy?"
She's like, he talked crap about me, called me a brat. He said I was raised wrong and it's your fault.
But Dad,
He's like, I want to meet this man.
yeah, and he goes, I think he knows his daughter well enough to go, this man was flirting with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you love him or do you like? I think he asks her, do you love him? She's like, no, and he's like, my adult daughter is displaying affections towards this man that she usually like. Probably he's seen her date men before, and this is how she plays it. And he's like, okay, I want to see this man. So he calls him, and he's in his little apartment wherever, and he's drinking as well because that's what they. So this movie has a couple things. It has a heck of a lot of smoking, heck of a lot of drinking, but this is also the 1930s, and a lot of those movies, 30s, 40s, and even 50s. Every character just smoking like a crazy person, and doing.
Oh, they didn't know what we know now.
Yeah, a lot of television was. There were television advertisements like Lucky Strike, like Lucky tastes better. Like that's an actual line from a commercial. Like do you want a fuller taste for your cigarette? Premier, whatever has no filter and whatever else.
What's the one that your dad always brings up? The commercial where it's like, I'd walk a mile for a camel.
Yeah.
And I always have a great comeback for that.
You couldn't walk a mile if you smoked a Camel every day.
I'll tell you later.
Okay, fair enough. Not appropriate for podcast ears. Fair enough. Anyway, so when you watch all these old black and whites and a lot of these older movies, they are very much. That's the thing, is it? Because it was a social smoking. Like he packs a pipe on the bus. I think is what he does, like a smoking pipe. Like, and I'm just like,
well, they're selling them on the bus.
Yeah. I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
It just reminds me of the old cartoons. Get your cigars.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hilarious.
It's a
So
thing.
when you watch these movies, you're going to see things. You're like, that's not normal. What are they're doing? What? This is not right.
Different time.
Yeah, different, very different time. So he then says, okay, I'm going to reach out to him. And she's like, you can do whatever you want, whatever. I don't care. I don't care about that man. He's like, really? Really? So he calls him and he's like, I'm not coming up there. But then he reads like an article headline and he's like, you know what? I'm coming. I'm not going to pay attention to that and whatever. And so he shows up and Dad asks him, okay, well, what's the story here? And Dad is very questioning. He's very specific in his questions.
Dad's like, like, what is this guy?
Yeah, what is his story? And so he comes to find out that he's like, I have an itemized bill.
Yeah.
$39 and something.
$39,
Like 60 cents.
60, okay.
67 or 57 cents. And he's like, that's all you want? And he's like, that's the cost of getting your daughter here.
Yeah.
That's all I care about.
He's so irritated. Dad's just like, oh, he loves her.
And he asks him, he's like, you don't want the $10,000?
No!
And he's like, no, I just want write me a check and I'll be out of your hair and I'll be on my way.
Yeah, he's saying, he's like, he starts asking him like, do you love her and stuff like that. He's like, you'd have to be insane to love her,
Right, and I'm a little crazy myself.
Yeah, and he just keeps avoiding the question. He's like,
you're not answering it. You're still not answering it.
and then he's like, yes. And then I'm a little bit I got some screws loose myself or something like that.
And then he just walks out, and the dad is like, okay, I have my. And he's like, I think he says, yeah, he loves her or something. It's confirmed for him.
Yeah.
So then he makes it out and he sees her and he catches her, and I think Dad is watching this engagement where she walks up to him and says something, and he goes, I got what I came for. So she's thinking it's the $10,000.
Right.
She's cranky as it is almost. More
Probably a little tipsy.
little tipsy. Yeah, she's been hitting the champagne. She loves it apparently.
I mean, honestly, she doesn't want to marry this king,
Yeah.
and she's probably trying to like
Take her
perk
money.
herself up. Or
Yeah, because
deal with her
all
feelings.
King wants is money, and so then I think that he just tells her off. And
By the way, King inspired another cartoon character from Looney Tunes,
oh,
Pepe Le Pew.
Oh,
I can see that.
I could too.
Right?
yeah, this movie had a lot of groundbreaking actions in addition to its.
And the dad apparently was Yosemite Sam,
Okay,
Oh.
there you go.
which I can't really see quite.
Ish, like the looks maybe.
Pepe Le Pew, oh yeah.
So he leaves, and it's like, oh, can I be? And I think he even asks her like, are you sure about this? Like, if you want out, like, she's like, no, this is whatever I'm gonna do. So then we.
That's not how a bride is supposed to act on
she's
her wedding
clearly
day.
not happy. She's clearly not excited to do what she's doing, but she feels like there's no way out. But I think he tells her, he's like, no, he just asked for an itemized bill for $38.67. She's like, he didn't even take the reward money. He's like, no, he refused. He didn't want it.
Well, he explains that to her as they're walking down
Yeah.
the aisle.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
like, and
that's
if you
right.
change your mind, there's still some.
So yeah, so Dad, your point, you cheer him on because Dad's figured it out. And
Yeah.
to his credit, Dad knew that, and so what this movie does is it gives us this false sense of Dad's the bad guy. The reality of it is Dad's not the bad guy. Dad's actually a good dad.
Yes.
A little bit of control issues.
Yes.
Needs to let go.
Gotta let it go.
Let his daughter fly off the boat in her own way without having to jump into the water and swim to the shores of Miami.
Yeah.
What I like about Dad is he's, in the end, you kind of go, wait a second. It's okay. So, spoiler alert: if you haven't seen The Sixth Sense, which if you haven't, where have you been and where are you?
real.
Where have you been? But it's the same thing as The Sixth Sense in a similar way. When you get to the end and you realize, oh my gosh, Bruce Willis's character was dead all the time. And so in this movie, you get to the end and you're like, wait, Dad's actually right. Dad's been right this whole time from the start to the finish. Dad's the good guy. What is happening?
Yeah.
Blown.
Because he says basically like that. He gives her basically every reason to leave, and he says if you want to, the car is running out back for you.
That's her choice.
And he just kind of goes, do what you will. And so she gets up there, and you can see, what I love about this movie is the power of the faces. So, but both of the actors, they tell you so much with their glances and so much with their eyes and their mannerisms, and you can see her struggling with this decision as she walks closer to the end game at the altar. And so then she gets there, and the officiant says, "Do you take this one?" Oh no, he says, "Anyone who wants to speak out now, forever hold their peace." Dad almost says something.
did.
You can tell he's
just
thinking
like,
about it.
nope.
So that's her decision. It's her decision.
But that like 2 seconds
Yeah.
tells you everything
Yes.
about Dad. He was gonna do it, but he's like, okay, no, but she'll figure it out. I trust my daughter, and I love that because the agency that he's been holding from her suddenly is right back and didn't even say it, didn't verbalize it, but that decision to say, okay, girl, it's on you. And almost to be a little bit sarcastic or corny, girl power time. Like it's on you. I'm not going to hold you back. I'm not going to dictate your life decisions anymore.
Yeah.
You got to run this on your own. I've given you the information. I've given you the evidence.
Now you do something with it.
Get in the car and run. So he says, King, do you take this? I do. Do you take this man? And she just kind of goes, and she
And she
just
bolts.
Runs out.
She ran fast in that gown and heels.
Yeah,
That's
she was.
all I have to say.
That is impressive. Over grass, like depending on
Yes.
the heel, like it can get stuck in the grass.
Yeah.
This is the
So
things
she
they don't tell
hauls,
you.
she jumped. They're all like, "La, la, 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 la."
They're all running after her.
Yeah,
I'm like,
because they're
oh,
trying
God.
to photograph her and get the images, and so she ends up in her car and takes off. And Dad is just like, yeah. And I think King asks, "Did you know anything about this?" Not a clue.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. You planned it.
Yeah. So so here's the thing: we don't see
Them together.
again. It's
Technically, no.
yeah, we just see it on the ending
I
scene.
love.
We just know they're married now.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Dad on the phone with both of these guys.
So Dad has been having some drinks. Dad's happy and celebrating, and King calls him. He's like, "Oh, hey, King, how you doing? Did you get my offer? It's more than generous, or it's more. It's what was it?
He's been, he gave him like $100,000.
Yeah.
He's like, I kind of interpret it as him being like, just get over yourself. I paid you plenty. You'll be fine.
I got off it cheaply, whatever. I think King was probably trying to save himself the embarrassment of what had happened in front of 100, like thousands of people in that at the wedding ceremony. So he's just trying to get some money out of the deal. So Dad sells it, and Dad's having a great old time.
He's so happy.
Dad is just thrilled.
Yeah.
So then he gets a telegram. He's like, "Well, where are they now? They're in Grand Rapids, Michigan. They're acting." And I quote, "What's taking you so long with the stupid annulment, old man?" And he's like,
The
reply
walls
back,
of Jericho are toppling.
the walls of Jericho toppling. And he's like, "Wire them back. It's done," or something like that. He's like, "Okay." And so then the next scene we get to see is the little house that they've rented with the car out front, and we
got some people talking out.
It's like
front.
they requested a toy trumpet.
yeah. They made me go to a store and buy a toy trumpet. I have no idea what's going on. And then we get the
The walls of Jericho are falling.
yeah, and the end. So
Great.
yeah,
Best ending ever.
I think
Next to the apartment, of course.
yeah, yeah. Shut up and deal is a line that I will treasure with ever. So, all right, so how do we feel about this movie? What's our rating and our explanation?
Who's going first?
I will.
Okay.
I was just checking to make sure we're
go
still
around.
We're still there.
I'll start. So I love this movie because it allows the audience to work through to be intelligent enough to trust the audience to figure it out as we go and to kind of navigate the unknown for a little bit with this movie because you're not really sure what's going on. You're not really sure who's who. It's a slow process, but you get there. But it also it lets you enjoy. It brings you to laugh about the whole situation. But it's not a romantic comedy that's just off the rails. There are some very serious moments in this movie, like legit emotional moments between these two characters where they share some really intense truths and what they're struggling with. So from a counseling perspective and just even like a high school, like I guarantee if we showed this movie to the kids and let them like really dig into it, they'd be like, man, yeah, I felt like that. I know what that looks like. I know that.
Totally.
So I would say, so yeah, I mean, for a film made in 1934, and I don't know if you experienced this, but there's moments where the quality kind of whacks out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think because they had the original film and then sometimes they didn't.
Right.
And so we get that kind of dodgy look and then it goes back to crisp, but there's some moments. I mean, overall, I think it's a 10 out of 10. And I would watch it again. I would love to just watch this movie and enjoy it because now I know what's going to happen and I'm going to be looking for details and things that are different. So I mean, again, it's a rush. It's 1934, so you can't really put your 2024, whatever's on it. This movie will be 100 years old in 10 years.
Sheesh.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
So I would say 10 out of 10. I really like the
You love
way,
your black and whites.
Yeah, I love it. It's written well enough that there's so much layers with what you know about the characters and what you don't know, and you have to really dig into it. So yeah, I liked it. Vicki.
I give it a 9. For me, it doesn't. The apartment got a 10 for me because of the emotional connection and how invested I was, and I like this movie.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the same investment I had with the apartment, so that's why I give it a 9 instead of a 10.
Yeah.
But still really good. I now have an appreciation for Clark Gable.
Yeah.
Which was not easy.
Well, if all you know is Gone with the Wind, you've got to. There's a more diverse portfolio with him. And I mean, this movie was a relative unknown to me. We looked at it on a list. We found it on a list on Friday. We're like, what are we gonna watch?
I'd heard it's come up like a couple times as like a good movie to see, but I didn't know. I hadn't seen it.
So for me, like I really adored the movie. I'm gonna give it like somewhere between an 8 and a 9.
Okay.
I love the fact that like he calls her Brat because that's like my and Zoe thing. Like I've always called her Brat.
Yeah.
Like
Ever
since we were
s-
teenagers.
Yes, since we were teenagers, and it's like an adoring thing. It's not like me or anything like that. The reason why I would give it like an 8 is I think it went on a little bit too long.
Yeah.
There were parts of it where I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm a little bored.
Yeah.
But that's it. Like it comes back.
Yeah. It bounces back eventually. Okay, that's fair. Zoe.
I would say a 9, and my only complaint, and you guys are probably gonna hate this, but
Speak your truth, Zoe. Own your truth. Be confident in your truth.
I wanted to see them have like their kiss.
Yeah, so that
Sure.
okay, I will agree with that. So that would change I would bump it down to like a 9.5 maybe.
Yeah.
And it is weird that they didn't show that in the end. And I'm
Because they never kissed once. Like I wanted the final
yeah. Yeah.
Wish you could have seen the hand motion, everybody.
with a donut.
Oh my god.
I didn't mean it like that, but
I have nothing to say to that. We're just going to shift on forward. So yeah, no, I agree. I wonder if the fact that it was a 4-week shoot meant that last scene was just and I'm betting they were not on the set at that time.
Probably not.
That was just like, let's get this over with. Let's get this.
All they had to do was throw a blanket and a toy trumpet on the ground.
Yeah.
And they're done.
We're done. So I think because you do maybe that's because it doesn't. Romantic comedies of the 1930s were a little different but this also was like a punishment movie, so they weren't really aiming for goodness. I mean, I guarantee you none of the people working on this movie thought that it would win any Academy Awards, and the fact that it went on to win 5 of them is just
The 5 top ones.
is mind-blowing, but it's worth it. Like the movie does a good job of doing the work to be worthy of it. But yeah, I think that we're so used to the guy kissing the girl, getting the girl, whatever at the end of the romantic comedy. And the fact that
Or at least a conversation.
yeah,
Because the apartment doesn't have a kiss, but there's
No,
a conversation.
Yeah.
For me, that That's what I love about the ending of The Apartment is that they don't kiss.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's like I feel like you need it because they never.
There's no interaction.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Well, there's that almost kiss in the hotel room, where
but-
it's, or not in the hotel room, but it's
In the barn.
In the barn, that it's just like you almost, there would have been a payoff. So I actually agree with that but I also will be very forgiving of this one because, again, 1934, romantic comedy. And actually, it was like, they call it the first screwball comedy. Because in some ways it is. There's a little screwball to it.
Yeah.
But maybe they weren't intending, again, if they had to go back and make decisions, they probably would have had a kissing scene at the
You
end.
kiss Scarlett.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's true.
Yeah.
They fixed it a year later in Gone with the Wind. But they
And
didn't.
in color, which that kind of blew my
Yeah.
how close they are.
Yeah, so I think, and I'm not a film, knowledge person by any stretch of imaginations when it comes to when color became popular with movies. I think Gone with the Wind was more of an epic scale and an epic kind of movie that they wanted to have that.
Well,
in
yeah,
there.
the book. It's based on
Yeah.
this huge novel.
Yeah.
It's a huge story.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would have wished for that ending scene to be a bit more kissy.
That's the only thing.
It's a kissing
that
movie,
I'm-
a kissing
yeah.
book. It would have been better with a kissing ending in the book.
Well, she kissed King too.
Yeah.
She kissed King too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now I'm
Multiple
really
times.
angry.
Now Zoe's unhappy. Watch out, Columbia. You're getting a strongly worded letter about a 90-year-old movie from Zoe. Dear sir.
We know it was a punishment movie.
Yeah.
We know you didn't really care about it, but I mean,
Yeah. I'm sure they could probably do it they could reanimate them and like.
I do not want to see him as an AI. Thank you.
no.
No.
Yeah, that would be terrifying.
This movie goes public domain in 10 years. Let's not give anyone any ideas.
That's true. So 2030 is when it goes public domain. It no longer.
Do you think they'll do something with it?
I don't know. Maybe.
Someone will.
Yeah, because they did it with Winnie the Pooh. So the first
Crazy thing.
What?
So
And Steamboat Willie.
Yeah. So, and here's the thing about that. It's very limiting, though. So, Winnie the Pooh, the first book, is out in public domain. So,
love the
people
book.
can't touch any of the other additional characters. They can only operate with Winnie the Pooh in the version from the original book, where I think I don't think he has a shirt. Or it's a specific kind of design.
Right.
Yep.
So, that's in the public domain. Steamboat Willie is only the character it's not the actual Mickey Mouse that we're used to, because Steamboat Willie was pre Mickey Mouse. It was the first kind of whatever. And so to Phil's point, yeah, they produced
Several.
They produced some horror movies with Winnie, and I was just, for me, it was like, okay, I get it, but
That's
really?
getting a sequel, by the way.
Of course it is. And then they're actually making, I think, either a game around the concept of Steamboat Willie.
Both. They're making a horror movie and a game.
Yeah. So because
A couple games.
So here, and this is a jumping off discussion we can have for a second before we close it out. But we talk about movies and how there's no original ideas in Hollywood. It's all about the remakes. Did we talk about Madam Web last week?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still not doing any better. It's
And it's showing in town for some reason.
yeah. Well, who's Dakota Johnson, or was it Dakota? Who's the star of Madam Web?
Oh God,
I
what
think-
is her name?
Dakota something.
Hold on.
Oh, from. Well, I can't say that.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking, though. I'm
Okay.
tracking with you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Madam Web.
That's sad. That's the only thing I can think of her in.
That is
but
all I can think of, though.
I know there's others, but that's the main one.
Yep. Yep.
Dakota Johnson.
Yeah.
the
It is
Dakota
Johnson,
Johnson
okay.
that we know from the movies that we can't
That's
talk about.
sad because she's such a.
Well,
good
and she, from what I understand, she fired her publicist after seeing the movie or like watching the trailer or something.
Oh, gosh.
And she hasn't been positive because like she made the movie and then I guess she finally saw a final cut, or she started to see the trailers, and the trailers are very
Misleading.
Yeah, they're very misleading. They suggest that we're going to see 4 characters on screen. We don't. And it's, every single review I've watched has been just like, this is terribly written, terribly plotted. It's trying to cash in on the Spider-Man. Well, here's the danger is that this is Sony's Spider-Man license. Correct, Phil, I believe? So Sony owns it right now.
Yeah.
And for Sony to retain the license, they have to make a movie every couple of years to renew it. So that's why we're getting these Spider-Man, Spider-Verse movies.
No, the Spider-Verse movies are fantastic.
Okay, well, but these are the
Yeah.
extended Spider-Verse that they have to, because if you made a Spider-Man movie every 2-3 years, people are going to get like they are with Marvel. They're going to get
Yeah.
tired of it, which we're already seeing. And so the danger is that Sony's going to lose their license, or nobody's going to see these movies, and they're going to just they're going to go broke because they're making movies nobody wants to watch.
Yep.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a lot out there right now. There's not a lot of good stuff And so I think to the point of what we were talking about with those movies, those public domains going public now, is people are looking for ideas to use in movies that they couldn't use before. And so they're so desperate to create something that's different, but still similar to the content that the license had, that they're going to do the horror movies with Winnie the Pooh. They're going to do the Steamboat Willie horror movie. Like, they're going to do these things. And it's like the fact that they latched on so quickly is like, you guys didn't have any ideas in the hopper, did you?
Yeah,
You were-
they announced the Steamboat Willie stuff 10 hours after it went.
Yeah, the public domain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we talk about Hollywood and Hollywood having no ideas, we're not joking around. Like, this isn't just like the popular thing to say. It's the terrifying truth. Like, there is nothing new in the world right now. And it's really frustrating because, like, we're going to get hit with more Marvel movies and they're going to tank because they're no good. They're not well written. They don't have good characters. They don't have enough time to cook. And so we're just trying to stamp them out and put them on the market. So, yeah, it makes me sad.
Me too.
Yeah. Zoe and I, we tend to watch older TV shows and stuff.
Yeah.
Especially, I don't know if she's told you, but, and we can't talk about it too much, but for me, when a show comes out and it's like the thing everyone talks about, I don't watch it then.
So it's funny, you should say that. So one of the hosts on Nerds by Screenlight in the past, James, talked about that the same thing.
Yeah, he did.
It's the buzz. The buzz is like all about it. You gotta watch it, It's like,
Yeah.
wait. Why is everyone talking about this? Is it actually good?
Yeah.
Or is it just the hype machine that's telling me I should watch it? And it's funny you should say that because, you like, everyone's talking about it. And then like a week or two later, nobody's talking about it.
Yeah.
Like, wait till you see the reviews.
So right now, Zoe and I are watching Sons of Anarchy,
Okay.
which, Aaron, you would hate.
Yeah.
Because it's all the things you don't like.
Yeah.
But, and in terms of like storytelling,
Yeah.
I've heard the writing's brilliant.
It's amazing. It's to the point where, like, the episode we were watching last night,
Yeah.
I literally turned into Watt again. Pain. And it was like, I'm not watching no more today.
Yeah.
Because it made me angry.
We both hit those walls at different points.
like,
but
it made me angry, but that's the thing. If it makes you feel,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
good.
It's good.
Yeah.
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 So I think it's like Sons of Anarchy. The show that I can't watch is the Walter White
and
Breaking
that came
Bad.
out during the same time.
Breaking
Breaking Bad.
Bad.
Yeah.
So there's a lot, and so I watched like one episode, like season 1, episode 1 of Breaking Bad, and I was like, nope, not gonna watch it. And I know, like, but here's the thing, it's brilliant writing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely brilliant writing. I did watch Better Call Saul.
Was
Right.
that good? Because
Yeah,
I loved
you-
him as in Breaking
You
Bad.
watched the whole thing. You really got into it. You
It-
watched it a lot.
It is so it's the writing. And this is, I think, the thing where something has happened to the writing of a lot of these shows is that the writing isn't given time to cook. You're trying to rush out these scripts and they're not well thought out. The plots aren't detailed. The characters aren't deep. The characters are flat. They're Mary Sue's most of the time. They just automatically have all the powers they need to, and there's no hero's journey involved. If you're curious what the hero's journey is, Joseph Campbell created the whole idea, adapted the idea of the hero's journey, and it's basic plot mechanics of how you tell a story about a hero and about their journey and what they have to do. They have to go through these things, and it's not perfect. They're struggling, they're fighting, they're whatever. And you look at a lot of these movies and they're just all perfect. They're all perfect superheroes. They can do everything and they're awesome and it's great. It's like, I don't care to watch. I want to watch a character struggle. I want to watch someone wrestle with their life. So we're watching a show called Northern Exposure. It's on Amazon
Yeah.
Prime.
Okay.
It's an older show. It stars
Quirky.
So the idea behind the show is a New York doctor, as a part of his education, he got a degree and it was paid for by the state of Alaska. The deal was that he had to go then be a doctor in Alaska. And so he got
Originally, it was going to be like Anchorage.
yeah, he was getting Metro
but-
Anchorage and it was going to be great and whatever. But then he got to Anchorage and the guy's like, well, we have too many of you. We have too many doctors. So we're sending you to Sicily, Alaska, which is a town of like maybe 500, if that. And so he ends up as a like New York physician, and he is Jewish, which is also kind of a cool thing where that does play a part in the story. And so he's this neurotic kind of like Jewish
He
doctor.
talks about being Jewish a lot.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm Jewish and I should be here, blah, blah, blah.
So he ends up in Sicily, Alaska, basically like a smaller Fort Morgan.
Yeah.
And he has, and it's
More
got-
like Brush, honestly.
yeah, it's a little, it's a little, and so it's small town. There's a significant Native American or indigenous population,
There's this guy that just doesn't knock, just walks into his house and sits there until he wakes up.
or comes into his house
Hi.
while he's sleeping in bed and just sits there and
God.
waits for him to wake up.
But he's like that sounds really creepy,
Yeah.
but he's like
He's just
Native
harm-
American. We don't knock. It's rude.
Yeah.
So
So
he's
there's
just like happy-go-lucky. Hi, need a ride? Here's my truck. Here are the keys.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah, so
But
the
he just doesn't knock,
The first
ever.
episode, he's like driving him to town, and he stops. And like, "Oh, I'm going home. You can take the car the rest of the day. I'll get it. The rest of the way, I'll get it from you." He's like, "I don't know where I'm going."
And he just walks off
Ed
into the
just
woods.
walks off into the woods, and
I
so
love this.
he has to sort. Poor guy has to drive and find
It's
his
my
way.
favorite.
So anyway, it's called Northern Exposure. It ran.
You're
for
the second person to tell me to watch this.
Really?
Really, who was the other one?
Liz.
Okay. Well, so
Funny.
she's 10 years younger than me, but she still like she'll like that makes sense because we're very much like we get each other. But yeah, Northern Exposure. It's a funny little show. The sixth season is where Rob Morrow actually left the show because of contract disputes, and they brought in somebody else.
Wasn't it Liz or Liz's husband that told us to watch Sons of Anarchy?
No, I'm just connecting with Drew a lot through Sons of
Oh,
Anarchy,
okay.
There's a,
which Aaron knows a little bit about from school.
a
But
shared pain and
Yes.
a shared experience. So, but that's like those shows like that is really intelligently written.
Yeah.
There's a lot of social commentary. There's a lot of conversation. But it's
I was just because I'm like, yeah, Alaska. Let's watch it.
yeah, and it's quirky, but it's so well written that you want to keep watching.
There's
You're
this
like,
character
what's
named
gonna-
Maurice. I don't even know how to describe him.
It's
Like a
fantastic.
John Wayne wannabe.
Yeah, who was an
Snot.
astronaut?
It's like
who
an ugly John Wayne wannabe.
went to the moon. You
Who's
know,
too much into show tunes. He's so weird.
he's retired now, and he lives in Sicily. He wants to make Sicily the Alaskan Riviera with all.
Oh.
Yeah,
Fell in love with an 18-year-old at a beauty pageant he was judging.
and then she left him for another man in Sicily.
Oh.
who
He's
actually
old
showed-
enough to be her grandfather.
her father, and he's like he showed her.
He's
true
the
love.
nicest guy. Such a weird
Okay.
show.
I'm down.
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime. If you don't purchase the $3 ad edition, you'll have to watch commercials in between. So we sucked it up and just said, okay, fine, Amazon, take my $3.
Take all my money.
Take my money. Stupid Amazon, who provides us with so much lovely. But like, you have to go in the past to find the good stuff. Like you got to find the good, well-written, smooth. There's a show called St. Elsewhere. It's in the similar
Yeah.
universe. Yeah, so it's in similar universe to Northern Exposure, and it's basically about a hospital in a small town, and it's like the hospital that nobody wants to go to. It's called Saint. It's in the name of some saint, but the nickname is Saint Elsewhere because you don't want to be you want to be anywhere but this hospital.
Oh gosh.
And it's such a quirky little show. It went like 6 or 7 seasons.
Okay.
And that's our next show I'm gonna probably invest in is watching that one. I don't think it's free on Amazon, but like a lot of the like Hill Street Blues. If you've ever seen that show, Hill Street Blues was the pre-NYPD Blue. It is amazing. It's brilliant. Homicide, Life on the Street. Such a great show, but all about Baltimore Police Department in the 80s and in the late 90s. Fantastic shows. But there's nothing really new, like nothing good that you can watch that you want to, because number one, Netflix or whoever, they cancel them all after the first season or second season.
Yep.
And so you don't want to even get invested, and so you're not really wanting to like.
Santa Clarice Diet or whatever. Why?
Yeah.
Why did it end?
Yeah. So there's a lot out there that is just like, why? It's almost as if like Hollywood just doesn't care about us, and they're like, screw you, we're gonna do our own thing,
We're gonna make another show.
right? And it's like,
That
well,
we're gonna
guess,
end.
well, guess what? We're not gonna watch any of your shows. We're gonna watch the old stuff, and we're
Yep.
gonna go back into that world because that's actually good quality television.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. They're hilariously enough, they're bringing back the X-Men '97. If you ever watched X-Men back in the day in Saturday morning cartoons, the that was the theme song. They're bringing back the actual storyline from it when Professor X dies at the end of that series. So it's coming back from 1997, which I watched as a kid.
They're also making a sequel to Twister.
Yeah,
Twisters.
I have feelings.
I saw
Can
that movie
Gary
in a
Ellis at
drive-in.
least be in it? That's
Oh,
my
really?
request.
Okay.
Gary Ellis. Okay.
So I'm mad because I don't think any of the original cast. Some of them have passed away, but I don't think any of the original cast is in the movie from what I understand.
I don't know.
See,
From,
that's when you know to avoid it.
from the trailer, I almost thought it was a remake
Yeah,
because it's so similar.
yeah. That's my worry. Is they're going to try. They're going to bank on the fact that people have been asking for a Twister sequel for years. Unfortunately, Bill Paxton died. Was it Bill Paxton that passed away?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bill Paxton passed. And some of the other, like Philip Seymour Hoffman passed away. So some of the original cast is no longer with us. But it's like you could still make a good sequel, but it feels like to Phil's point, they're just rebooting it with younger men.
And more tornadoes.
Yeah.
Because it's called Twisters
Yeah.
and not Twister.
Oh, brother. There were multiple Twisters in Twister. Dumb.
So I don't know. I'll have to see another trailer to make sure, but it doesn't leave me with a lot of confidence that they're going to do it right, which is unfortunate because it's such a great movie. It is so good.
Yes.
Helen Hunt, Bill Paxton, just magic on screen. Absolutely brilliant. All right, anything else that we want to spout off about, complain about when it comes to the media and the stupidity of television and games and everything else in between?
Nah.
Nah.
Yeah, there's nothing really new. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League continues to tank.
Well, Warner Brothers admit that it flopped.
Yep.
Okay.
Good news for games right now.
Oh.
Helldivers 2.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot about that.
It's a PlayStation 5 exclusive, so I don't have it, but my brother picked it up.
Okay.
And my brother is a major Starship Troopers fan.
Yeah.
He's like, this is the game I wish I would have got. Like
Okay.
for Starship Troopers. It's literally just Starship Troopers.
Okay.
Down to the satire and the way that
Really?
the civilization is. It's just Starship Troopers.
That's crazy.
But people have been loving it.
That's amazing. That's interesting. I will finish off with this. Apparently, the Xbox exclusives are not. They're thinking of removing them and selling them.
Some of them, yeah.
Some of them because they're not making enough money.
Yep.
And so that's got a lot of, and it's happening on PlayStation too. There's a lot of people on PlayStation and Xbox who are pissed because the exclusives that they thought they had when they bought an Xbox, there's no real reason to have an Xbox anymore. Why did you just get a gaming PC? And it's cheaper than buying an
I
Xbox.
have mixed feelings.
Oh, what are your tell us about your mixed feelings, Philip.
So I'm a diehard Halo fan.
Yeah.
Everyone knows.
Yes.
That's why you buy Xbox
Yeah, for the Halo experience.
and like Fable and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But let's, for the sake of this conversation, let's just focus on Halo.
Yeah.
If Halo went to PlayStation,
Yeah. That's the end of the world.
no. See, a part of me is like screaming, "Don't do that! Don't do that!"
Yeah.
But at the same time, as someone who loves Halo,
Yeah.
if it went to PlayStation and people that are just diehard PlayStation fans never had an Xbox,
Yeah.
and it gave them a chance to experience Halo
Yeah.
and expand the community, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
And there are Xbox people out there that are probably trying to look up my address right now. I'm sorry. Like, let's share the love, people. Like,
Well, and I think when you think about it, like for a long time, it's been an exclusive club where you had a PlayStation exclusive. You can only get the certain game on PlayStation. And here's the thing about 2024: we're in the digital age. We're in the age where everything is available everywhere, and this idea of exclusives is, I want to say, outdated because it's not really useful. It's not really like. For a long time, Xbox had the prize for the most game consoles sold, but PlayStation's slowly crawling back again.
PlayStation's killing it this generation.
So it's the thing of like
They have been for like the past two generations.
two generations. Okay,
Yeah.
that's unfortunate, but it's also like because then here's the question though, and this is the nerdy question of the day: is it now going to be like? Are you going to have to like because both game consoles are not cheap.
Right.
And are you going to have a situation where people are going to be like, look, if it's not exclusive anymore, if I can get it on the PC, I'm not going to get consoles anymore. Are we going to see, and this is very much hyperbole, so forgive me, are we going to see the near death of consoles?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Xbox says they're not backing out of the console
Okay.
thing.
So they'll still be around.
They actually said that like their next one will be the biggest leap in technology.
Okay.
It better not be next year. Like,
No. We still got
swear.
like another 5-6 years with these.
Okay.
Just got your new one.
Well, and that was the thing with PlayStation. When PlayStation 5 came out, there was supply shortages, so you couldn't buy one for like $5,000.
Yeah.
And the prices have gone down eventually, but I haven't invested in the console. I'm happy with my PC. I'm happy with what I got. But I think it's an interesting conversation with the exclusives if they go away, how that's going to all affect the market and what that's going to deal with. So, what are we doing next week for
You mentioned Joe versus the volcano.
Yeah, do you want to try Joe versus Volcano?
Sure, I have no idea.
Yeah.
So let's go for it.
Y'all are going in blind. I'm the one who's seen it. So there's the soundtrack is kicking. I really like the soundtrack. So it'll be a lot of fun. All right. Well, any last thoughts before we depart and close out the show? Vicki
really.
has-
There's one more Bugs Bunny fact, but I'm trying to think how to explain it. There's a throwaway line about someone named Bugs Cooley in the movie, and that
Yeah.
was the final part 3 inspiration for Bugs Bunny.
Oh, okay.
It was animated 6 years after this movie was made.
Crazy.
Yeah. But that shows you the power of media at that time is that things were highly suggestible. Like people picked up on it, and the consciousness was like, oh, Bugs Bunny. That's the carrots he was chewing on, and his
And
lackadaisical.
the character being like shapely is just kind of
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. So yes.
I think I have seen this, but a really long time ago. I wouldn't remember everything.
Okay. We'll see. It may be Joe versus Volcano. It may be a double feature. We'll see. We'll see what happens next week. Well, until then, my name is Aaron.
My name's Vicki.
I'm Phil.
And I'm Zoe.
And keep watching the old stuff. Look back. Go back into the old archives. Check out some old television. See some old movies. Because the time of Hollywood isn't dead yet. There's a lot of life still left in her. So check it out.
But the king of Hollywood is dead.
Yeah.
And also watch the new stuff and let us know what's worth watching.
Yeah.
Yes.
Send us
Yes.
an email, adelayedteacher@gmail.com. If there's a show that you think, or a movie you think you're missing out, you've lost your minds, get back into reality. We'll tell you to reject your reality and insert our own. But we'll
He
still,
says this a lot.
we'll still give it a watch if we can. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The raspberry flapovers will be out in a moment. The kitchen is closed.
You've been listening to the Nerds by Screenlight podcast, presented by Create at Morgan Productions, located in Fort Morgan, Colorado, USA. For more information on our production house, other podcasts hosted here, and further details, please visit www.createatmorgan.org. You can find us on Twitter at the handle CreateAtMorgan. Create at Morgan is a school club at Lincoln High School, our alternative education campus in Morgan County. Our sponsor is Aaron DeLay, the language arts teacher at Lincoln. Send any feedback to adelayedteacher@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to our podcast.